Alrighty, welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and a very special welcome to a great man all the way from Boise, Idaho, Mr. Scott Marker. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great on the other side of the pond.
And it's I think how many hours difference? You said it was like 3 p.m.
Yeah,
as we
3
record
p.m.
this, it's 9 a.m. Melbourne time on a Friday.
Wow.
Uh
On
yes,
Friday?
it's on Friday. So
Oh,
you are
that's right. That's why you
talking
said the
you're
future.
talking to
Yeah.
the
Okay. Okay.
future and I'm talking to the past.
Cool. That's awesome.
Scott, great to have you on the show. We've been connected on LinkedIn for a little while now, and yet another fantastic person to speak all things sales and sales leadership with. So I'm actually loving these conversations. So you are the founder of MCA Squared, which is Mixed
Right.
Customer Art Squared. Also have an established history of success over 30 plus years in sales and sales leadership. And I was also interested to know that you run a franchise, Network in Action International. So I'd love to know a little bit about that as well.
Okay.
But just because you don't have anything else to do in your life, you're also an author, a
Oh
multi-book
yeah.
author,
Yeah.
which your
Yeah. Yeah.
latest book is Broken. So we'll delve into that as well, how to fix B2B sales, drive profitable growth and win. So it's great to have you on the show, mate. Look forward to talking about all things sales and sales leadership.
It's an honor to be on here. Said
Awesome.
I told you before that one of my uh, friends I've never met, but through LinkedIn, how you can build relationships. I mean, I don't care what people say. I've built several great relationships and friends. I came across you because Graham Hawkins, who wrote the foreword to my book, was on your show, and that's how I discovered it. So
It's phenomenal, isn't it? When you think about things like LinkedIn, and there are people out there that talk about platforms like LinkedIn, and and they say, oh, yeah, you should only connect with people who you know and that sort of stuff. You know what? The world is, and you would know this through Network in Action International. The world is such a massive, massive place,
it
and
is.
I look at this now in the last 12 months in particular, getting to connect with people like you and talk to people like you. If I was doing what I was doing even 4 or 5 years ago, I would never have had that opportunity. So, from my point of view, things like LinkedIn and podcasting completely opens up the world, and
Yep.
just makes you realize that you know what, we can have some great conversations and build some great relationships, even though we might be like 16 to 17 hours difference in terms of
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
zones.
No, I totally
Powerful.
agree. I say that all the time. I have people I've known, and they do podcasts in India, you name it, around the world. I just did one in
Okay.
Serbia. So it's like, and we've talked like this and known each other and communicated, and it just I don't know. I just love it because it proves that the world, there's a lot more common with us than we think there is.
Oh, absolutely. And even though we might live on different sides of the world and we might have a slightly different accent, at the end of the day, a lot of the common principles are identical. Some of the challenges are
Absolutely.
probably the same.
Yep.
But it's great to have different perspectives. So, and this is what adds flavor to what we do. So, very much
Yep.
looking forward to this conversation, my friend. So, as I normally do with most of my guests, love to get a little bit of background on the man who is Scott Marker. And you've been in sales for a number of years, but what was it that led you into sales and I guess led you to do what you do today?
Like a lot of people, I didn't look for sales. It found me. So I got out of college and was assistant general manager of two restaurants and mowing 10 to 12 lawns a week. And I got out and here in the area, we have one of the lowest wages, average wages. And I went, why to go to college? It's just, it wasn't. And I had a couple of customers that went, one worked at Procter and Gamble, one worked at Warner Lambert, both, Fortune 100 companies. And they said, you need to be in sales. You have good personality, copying, talking to them all the time. I said, well, perfect, bring it on. And so the wife, next time her boss is in town, brought him in the restaurant and they interviewed me there. And then next thing you know, they said, hey, we like you. How would you like to move to Portland, Oregon? I went, okay. And that went to my B2B sales journey. So, and then went with them for several years and bounced. They transferred me a few times. And then, uh, so I've been in several different industries, like a lot of people. I would say that most people my age, that if you've been in sales, if you look at your LinkedIn, not every sales job is on there. And if it is, I'd recommend you take them off
Yeah.
because that's part of the problem of being broken is that there's there's not a lot of no matter how good you are, there's just not a lot of stability in sales, even sales leadership.
Mm.
anymore. So, but no, that's how I got into sales. Like a lot of people just kind of people said, "Hey, you'd be good at sales." And okay, what do I do? Go get
So,
them.
so through
And
that
the thing was
process,
also that first company I worked for, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but we were like the the second manager, we were like number one. And my toughest competition out of like hundreds of reps was my team of five. I mean,
right?
we were top all the time. So it was, and but it was a grind, but we pushed hard, and it taught me a lot of things. It gave me a good base.
And was that because is that when you're early in your career,
Yeah, that was my first job.
first job? So you had people who were what, high performers, pushing hard, or just lots of pressure?
Kind of a combination. They were good at what they did. The manager actually was not a good person. He was could be I don't know, he's mood swings. You could be with him one day, he could ride with you 2 days. One day it could be your best friend. The next day it could be, yelling at you that you didn't do a good job in a presentation.
Yep.
But they looked the other way because he got results. And
Mm.
so yeah, that was I even talk about it. Looking back, well, I mean, I was told like Monday through Thursday, do not talk about any social activities at night
Right.
because then he would know I wasn't at my last business at 5 o'clock, then the commuting time. Then we had about hours worth of paperwork. We had back then you had to fax
Yep.
it in. There's no way you could do all that and go to movies or dinner or something. So you weren't allowed. I mean, and I was like, what? And they said, just don't rock the boat. He expected you to, work, be at work, be on 7 and, get home at 7. And
Yep.
so that was the kind of, we're going to be number one. That's what it takes to be. And yeah, so that's the kind of the boot camp I started out in for the first 3.5 years of my life.
Well, it would have been a great initiation, and I guess working with people who uh, are under pressure first and foremost, but I guess are pushing forward and hustling and trying to get
Yeah.
better and performing at a high level forces you to get up to that level as well. And
Yeah.
we always talk about surrounding yourself with people who are better than you so you can lift your performance to a whole new level.
Yep.
But if you look back in those 3.5 years, having a manager like that, who, from what you're describing, may have been a little bit schizophrenic, and we know leadership today is you need to be a little bit more empathetic and still drive some high standards and be
It-
uncompromising there. But
yeah.
what were some of the key lessons you learned from that experience over those 3 years that's held you in good stead for the rest of your career?
He, I'll tell you, I don't, I didn't learn a lot. I mean, being around it, learning around other good people. I mean, that was good and stuff. But overall, I again, I don't think he taught me a lot. I had other managers that I had that were a lot more, um, kind of like motivational
Yeah.
and kind of could push you and stuff. And like I said, I work for another team for another company, and again, my other two reps are top in the nation, and so they pushed me, and then I was for a new person, I was like one of the top for sales, for growth, and all that. And that manager was complete opposite. He
Mhm.
just was a great guy, compassionate, cared about you. You knew he cared about you, and if management was on his butt to be on your butt,
Yeah.
he just softened up the message, but you would know, oh boy, I could tell he's under pressure.
Yeah.
And so uh you know anyway, yeah.
So
So
part of that
yeah.
could be because we've always got models around us, and you're going to have some great models who are going to model excellence, and then you got some others people who perhaps don't have the same aptitude or skill set or competency, and I still think they can teach us stuff. And if
Yeah.
it's teaching us to say, you know what, when I get to a position where I have the responsibility of having a sales team, this is how I'm not going to treat them, right?
Yep,
Because it's not
exactly.
going to extract their maximum potential.
Yeah.
So there's
And
always,
tell you, and that's being a leader, and that's kind of what you're about. And exceptional leaders. That isn't like an average. That's exceptional. Just like they want salespeople to be exceptional. Well, we want exceptional leaders too. And with the younger generation, more than ever, it's a different mindset. You can't be the old school like my first manager was, a
mm,
jerk all the time and push you. So a lot. I've had people that I've managed, and to this day, 15 years later, they'll say, "Hey, that's my boss," and he
Yeah.
was the single best inspirational person. And I look back at what I did, and it wasn't rocket science, folks. I treated her because she was a rock star. One of them was a rock star. I thought, wow, I got to treat her good because she's everything I do. I mean, if she wanted to cut off early because her kid was sick or something, I'm like, sure, because
Yeah.
I didn't have to. I'm not going to babysit you.
Yeah.
She worked harder by not me not babysitting her. So anyway, yeah, that I think sometimes leadership isn't as tough as people. It's just the back to the basics. Treat people how you want to be treated, and if you try to inspire them to pull them versus push them, that's a leader. And again, I see patterns in my life with other things I've been involved with that I have people um, thank me
Mm.
for. I give you one other quick say, talking about leadership. In the mixed martial arts, I got involved in that way early, and then I got involved in refereeing, and then in Idaho appointed me for 11 years. If you brought fights to Idaho, you had to, I had to, I supplied all the officials, plus I did a lot of the refereeing myself,
Yeah.
and I had a couple kids that were one of the other referees would work as a church, and for some troubled kids said, hey, they love mixed martial arts, could they help out in any way? So I made a position up called cage um, a cage management, and they basically cleaned up blood and water off the ground. That's what they did, and made sure that that was my job too. But they actually fixed it if something went wrong with the cage, and I treated them like everybody else, and I didn't think that anything special. And then years later, both of them reached out to me and said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And they get out of high school, they get their first job or two jobs, and they just say, "I want to thank you." I go, "For what?" Looking back, you treated me like every other person, the other referees, the other, I mean, everybody. I said, yeah. I said, we needed you.
Yeah.
You're part of the team. So
Yeah.
again, the simple, sometimes I think leadership, I think we overthink it.
I think we do, and sometimes we hear a lot about this word ego, and I think there's a lot of leaders out there, and I think using the word leader in this sort of context is probably being disparaging to real leaders.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them as being managers. And I've seen this happen in some big corporates in Australia. People get into a leadership position, inverted commas, and they get caught up in the position and what they think is the prestige and the status that's associated with that position. And they almost have a complete lobotomy and change their personality and the way they deal with people.
Yeah.
I've always maintained, and this is probably the mentoring that I had, not just when I was in sales, but before that, is always treat people with respect, irrespective of who they are, and care for people, right? If you can lead with empathy, then any challenge you're gonna encounter, you'll always have people who will be there to support you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether it's the CEO or whether it's the janitor or whether it's the person running the canteen or the coffee shop. Treat them as people and to be
Yep.
human. And
Yep.
you're right, sales leadership, we can overcomplicate it, but when it comes down to it, you're dealing with people. And if I can help those people become better and do it in a way that's caring for them, genuinely caring for them,
Yeah.
they'll thank you and they'll never ever forget how you made them feel.
See, and that's, yeah, I'm real passionate about like looking back in my back, anytime I do anything, like how can I always thought I'm kind of a slow learner,
Hmm.
slow to learn, slow to forget. Uh, and because of that, the way I teach, I try to be more efficient at teaching so that I can be quicker at teaching somebody to do something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a passion of mine. And so that kind of comes off with sales and stuff that over the years, um, I mean, people now say stories, all this stuff. I've been talking about that for years. Like it comes from my martial arts background and stuff. But um, I do a lot of metaphors, analogies, and I have a saying. It says, how do you not be a commodity? Is you turn every product into a service, every service into a solution, and every solution into a customer success story.
Hmm.
You need to talk about the outcomes,
Yeah.
customer success stories. Anyway, stuff like that you can teach stuff quicker and faster by. Anyway, that's why I work. That's why I think I've been not perfect, and I'm always trying to. Everybody says they're always trying to learn and get better, but I constantly my martial arts back. I like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. You're always trying to advance basics. I call it is take the basics and just add a couple minute details that make a big difference.
Yeah,
So that's kind of my philosophy.
love it. And I like the way that through that you've talked about team and you've talked about the people around you. And as we talked about before we press record, success is not an island, right? So you need to have
No.
people around you and you need to have people on your team. And whether you're a small team or a large team, every single person that is part of that team has a part to play in how we drive that customer success story.
You
So,
you have I always tell people, don't forget you have external customers and internal customers.
mm,
Internal customers are called your teammates.
mm,
And guess what? In for most part, and I've always thought this way, I what I sell, right, what I'm helping, the service, whatever we're doing, I don't fulfill it.
mm,
So I rely on my team to do what I promised. Right. So that means, and I won't get too much into it, but again, in my life, it's not rocket science. It's just like for customers, for example, prospecting. I've over my life, I've done tons of prospecting. So internal customers, eh, I don't care who you are when I'm working with, I'm going to treat you great, just like I treat everybody else. External customers, for example, when you're cold calling over my life. I've done a lot of cold calling. So I used to do a lot of medical, and I went into a place and my friend was one of my customers, one of the doctors I knew. We did jujitsu together. So I come in, I had a bag of chocolate, and I said, little candy bars, and I said, "Hey, is Doctor Steve in?" And they go, "Ah, can we ask who you are?" And I told them, and they okay. I said, "Hey, do you want some chocolate?" And they and they're little candy bars, and a bunch
yeah,
of them took chocolate and stuff. So and then he goes, "Oh, since got up." So I go right up there, and he goes, "Man, you're smart." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, I had a pharmaceutical rep come in here, and he this snooty walked right past them, and then asked me to take me to lunch. You treated my front desk like gold. He goes, they know now they know you know me, but he goes, that's the difference of getting in to see me and not is treating my you know,
yeah.
front team good. Anyway, and again, that's again, not, I don't think that's rocket science. You just treat everybody good and good things happen.
Well, it's not rocket science, but it's so interesting how many people, for whatever reason, get so focused on, I've got to get to the executive, I've got to get to the key
Yeah.
decision maker. And the person that's on the front desk or the secretary or the executive assistant, they think, oh, I've got to get around this person or through this person and try to almost big note myself so I can get through. What they don't tend to realize is that executive has that executive assistant as a key influencer and person of trust that if you treat them any way less than they expect, you've just you've just put a black mark against your name. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. Everybody is an influencer. That's the way you got to think of it. And if you don't, you're in trouble. I
Yeah.
mean, and I don't. Yeah, I don't. You just do. And again, you might not. In a lot of positions I've been over my life, the decision maker, the admin assistant was the decision maker,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Because usually it was a lady. She would tell whoever it was, he or she, like, "Oh, Scott's a rock star, or whoever it is, a rock star. We need to use them. Here's what they've done for us." Da da da. Right, and then
Yeah.
the other person would sign it.
Yeah. Yes.
So, because depending on what they're buying, how much it is,
Yeah.
it's what it isn't always the person that really is the biggest influencer of it isn't necessarily the person that's going to ink it.
That's it.
So
And I think a lot of salespeople and a lot of sales leaders make that mistake in that they get the org chart and they think, right, we're going to go high. They're the people we need to get
yeah,
to without thinking about, okay, what is the informal influencing
yeah.
organizational chart?
Here,
If you map that out, it'll
yeah,
tell you a completely different
okay.
story.
Here's something we because we're changing in little directions here, but I have something that I have an oak the oak tree uh, metaphor, and what
Mm,
I say is that um and years and years ago had a tree in my front yard. windstorm came in, split in half, had to get it replaced. And I go out to the orchard and I go, I love that tree. Well, that tree grew up really fast and the root structure doesn't keep up and knocks it over. I go, oh, wow. Like an oak tree, what's it do? It takes
Mm.
forever to grow up, but on that huge root structure.
Yeah.
That's so I say the oak tree methodology, right, is exactly what you do in a customer. So I go with the 3x3 principle is that I have a big customer in a former life, the same one, the medical one. I have this huge medical client, and the front desk lady, the coffee lady, all the people that actually do the work, my friend that worked there, and the decision maker, if I was lucky, I got to see her once a month. So
Yeah.
like a tree, I had a root structure, and people would tell me when my competitors came by. I knew at all these different. So and guess what? It's tough to blow over, meaning it's tough for my competitors to take them out because
That's it.
the decision maker is hearing all these people that say Scott and his team are rock stars.
Yep.
So and I have another thing since then. So I say 3x3, and you need to have three people in your company that know three people good in their company because their decision maker can leave. And that's a whole nother thing called change of guard strategy. If somebody leaves in that company and they're your customer, change of guard, immediately you want to go, okay, the new person, we got to go and sell that person again or talk to them, persuade them, let them understand why they use us, and
Mm.
then find out where the other person went
Hmm.
because they might go to a place that we couldn't get into before.
That's it.
That's the change of guard principle. And also now the same principle, if that is somebody you've been trying to get into forever and you drop by, you find out that person left, LinkedIn will show you they left, right? That's change of guard. Now it's a chance to come into the new person and try to get the account now. And again, the bottom line is if you put one root down, you have too much of a chance you can get you can get the account taken away. And
Yeah.
that's why one last tip here, I always like to give actionable tips is in a CRM, it depends on the industry, but if it's a small enough industry that you know your competition really good, like the down to the rep, which I did at one company, I in the CRM, myself and my two direct reports would put in the CRM, and if that person left the company, and a lot of times it was not on good terms,
Yeah.
they had the whole relationship with the customer. We would blitz all their customers and pick up new customers
Mm.
because a lot of times that sales rep would and probably badmouth their company saying they're jerks and I'm going to leave them, and then we would just do a blitz and pick up new customers. Yeah, we did that over and
That's
over
a
again. It was great. I mean, every time we did, and we'd find out who they had. Then we knew who the rep was, and if they left, then we knew, boom, we're gonna go after them. So
that's
anyway,
it's a good strategy and one that maybe a lot of people don't look at.
no, I mean, you gotta. I mean, there's on LinkedIn. It's just if somebody again the change your guard principle and the oak tree principle goes both ways. If your competitor doesn't do a good job, the second that person you couldn't get past before leaves, that's your next chance to get back into them.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So, on that theme, we've sort of touched on the importance of having a team structure and everybody playing the same, according to the same hymn sheet, for want of a better term. Let's talk about your book and what the genesis of Broken was, because the title is Broken: How to Fix B2B Sales, Drive Profitable Growth and Win. So I know you also talk a lot about customer centricity and
Yes.
Graham, if he's listening to this, he's a big advocate of this as well, that buyers more than ever are more and more educated, and we can no longer go as a salesperson into a customer and go, oh, tell me about your business and what keeps you up at night.
Oh,
There's
look,
all sunshine.
look, yeah, on the wall. We both
Right.
know that.
Exactly. So they expect so much more. So what's your perspective on customer centricity? Because a lot of organizations talk about we put the customer at the center of everything we do. We are a customer centric organization. And you mentioned it before, right? Some people treat their customers like gold, and they don't necessarily treat their employees like gold. Both of them are customers, right?
Yep.
So, what was the genesis for Broken, and what created, I guess, the need for this to be released into the marketplace?
Okay, here's the deal: is that there's sales 1.1, 1. 2.0, 3.0, whatever the heck it is. I got to the point where even though the title says it, you can't fix it. It's a
Yeah.
broken model. The model's broken. And here's why it's broken. The KPIs, compensation, and goals, which are sometimes impossible to meet, and the pressure on top of those goals to meet them have nothing to do with the success of your customer and buyer.
Yeah.
Nothing. How can you be customer centric if the goals are all about putting money in the pocket, meeting a goal? Where in there? Read. There's nothing to do. I read lots of job descriptions and they have all this stuff. Hunter, have to be, you know, never take no, blah, blah, blah. At the bottom, customer service, experience, but not
Nice
necessary.
to have.
I mean, what? What? I mean, so that's the problem and here's a good example I'll give you a specific example because I love debating people that go, oh, Scott, you can never change it. Well, here's some things. One, cross-selling, I call cross-serving. That's why because you got to change your language.
Hmm.
That's why I changed my book from I mentioned before this came on. I have a model that I use to teach people on how to kind of improve sales and marketing overall operations. But it used to be called my first book, the strategic selling cycle. I thought,
Yeah.
how can you be customer centric calling it a selling cycle? So now it's a strategic customer cycle.
Yeah.
So um, you have to change your whole language, and you got to be you can't like I closed it. We just closed the deal. Yeah, slap it. I'm gonna win a Tesla. I got a Tesla. Oh, you made your goal, or you're on a PIP. So going back to the cross serving, right?
Yeah.
So we had somebody who took cross selling Wells Fargo Bank, and they went viral. What they did was they took the traditional sales model. They said the CEO and the executive said we're going to take everyone's going to learn cross selling, and we're going to land and expand. If you have more products, it's stickier. The banking
Yeah.
and everybody uses that, but the banking especially they use that term. So what they did was everybody, the teller, anybody in that branch had high goals, and they made what they do comp commissions, right? Right. So and then so the KPIs were
Hmm.
about what? Signing up more people on more accounts, and you make more money. And I talked to one person when I did my book. They said also, he said they had a spiff that if you open up, he was a commercial manager of the commercial division in Wells Fargo. He said they had one time, I don't know how big it was a competition, but if you could open up 14 new accounts, and I don't know what those are, like a savings account, a new
Yeah.
customer account, in 14 days, you got entered into winning $14,000. I wonder if that would cause any. Anyway, so what happened was this, and this is all documented, is they started doing just like traditional sales, putting up in the goals, making them higher
Yeah.
and higher, and threatening to fire people. There's story after story in the court documents that show that managers would say, I hope you like working at McDonald's
Mm.
because if you don't hit your goals this month, you guys will be fired. And what happened? 3.5 million fraudulent accounts were set up. People didn't get loans. They lost their cards. Some people lost their homes. So that is a case study on why traditional sales is broken,
Mm.
is that the KPIs, compensation, and goals are nothing to do with the customer. They're about making money hitting goals, making money for you and the customers. And
Yeah.
that's the problem. So, Scott, what's the solution? Is to have no salespeople. That's what I'm recommending. Have no salespeople. Say you have advisors, brag on social media and say, our advisors, because once you implement this, that right now, for years and years and years, the average salesperson is between 18 to 14 months, we'll say 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So there's constant turnover. How can you become an expert in 1.5 years in
Yeah.
an industry? You can't. So we're
Yeah.
going to say, we're going to bring in our advisors. We're going to bring them in. We're going to tell them what our philosophy is. We're customer centric here. Here's what we do is that you get compensated, not in any one sale. That will cause your full salaries. None of this low OTE on target earnings. You're getting a full salary like everybody else on the team, full salaries. And everybody, I'm talking everybody in the company, even if they don't influence customers, they're going to figure out some way to do it, are going to be bonused off of the right type of customers and growing those customers. That's it.
Hmm.
And keeping them. That's it.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? As everybody knows, traditional sales at the end of a quarter, especially right now, like in the SaaS industry, people are getting. I know people that are wonderful people. They're getting laid off because they
Yeah.
overhired. It's times are tough, so it
Yeah.
gets to be the end of a quarter, and your butt's on the line, and you're thinking, I'm going to get fired. You're going to bring in wrong customers.
Mm.
Wrong customers are so expensive to companies. I have a guy that has an AI solution. He showed me how he had one company. He showed they had hundreds of thousands of dollars they're losing every quarter because of all these wrong activities of running around doing things that weren't efficient and bringing in the wrong customers. So how do you do is you have when you bring on a new an advisor brings on a new customer service when they onboard them, rate them. How well of a customer are they? How well do they know the customer? Because marketing should have been could have been educating them. Then sales should have been educating them on the way in. And so when they get in, they're going to be rated.
Mm.
And then you mentioned on your yesterday on was it a great I loved your episode yesterday, which was, is your team is your team industry the best kept
Best kept
secret?
secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was great because I have a I don't know if you can see it here, but
Yeah.
that's my strategic customer cycle. And the
Yeah.
first, and people ask me, they even read my book, and I put retention first.
Yeah.
It belongs over here, but I put it first. Why? To remind people the first thing you do before you get one customer as a company is put a retention plan in place. Because
Mm.
guess what? At other companies, I stole, just like I told you before,
Mm.
I was your best customers were on my hit list.
Yeah.
Right? So you better protect them and you better serve them good or they're going to be in trouble. So the whole upserve and cross serve, so many companies talk about we love our customers, but continually put the pressure on no new logos. So if you have a company culture of focus, I mean, I'm talking you. This has to come from the top because
Of
customer
course.
focus. So we're putting our customers first, and then what follows? Revenue,
Mm.
not the reverse. And so anyway, that's my whole philosophy. How many companies have done what I recommend so far? None that I know of. But as you know, as you mentioned also yesterday, or I don't know if yesterday, I listened to it yesterday. You did the recent podcasts and stuff. Is that there's less people in market than ever now, and 3% or something like that, depending on your industry
Yeah.
and what it is, and depending on which study. A lot of people like to point to Gartner. I do too because they have a name and they did a pretty good sample size. But about half buyers don't even want a salesperson involved. The younger they are, the more. And why? Because another lady, I can't remember her name, was on your thing, said that over in she was over in the UK, I think, in
Yeah.
that area. She said, "Oh, you don't want to stand up on a rooftop and say you're a salesperson. Why? Because they have a bad reputation."
That's it.
That's exactly right. So the bottom line is we're to the point now that buyers know that salespeople, one, a lot of them don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're not compensated on their success. And so more and more and more, it's going to get tougher and tougher. So companies need to do something different. So
Yeah. Love it. So there's a number of points in there I wanted to touch on. One of them is I'm just going to take for want of a better term, I'm going to play the devil's
no,
advocate.
I love it. I love it. No, this is
So
good. No,
Scott,
I love
I'm
this.
going to I'm going to be the devil's advocate. I'm going to say, well, Scott, that's all well and good, but we're under pressure to drive profitability. How am I going to incentivize high performing salespeople if they're not going to be individually compensated for their own effort, right? If I have, for example, a target for the whole team and everybody gets a piece of the pie, how do we actually get people who become exceptional, right? Is it an opportunity for people to coast, to fly under the radar and get at what we call the clip of the ticket on the way through?
Yeah.
What would you say to those people? Because to be honest, I actually agree with you because I think sales, the reputation of sales is changing. And I think the great salespeople and the great exceptional leaders are the ones that are putting the customer first and they're making decisions in the benefit of the customer, not in the benefit of their organization. So what would you say to those people that are sitting, hey, this is not going to work, my friend?
Yeah, and one thing I didn't specify there is, which is in my book. I said I am the advisor. We're still going to be have individual and team bonuses.
Okay.
So you're going to have some type of like goals, but the goals are going to be, okay, guess what? This quarter, um, Darren brought in uh 10 perfect customers. He got his customer service said, right? So you get a slight of bonus off of that. So there's going to be, it's just that you got to tweak them so they're customer centric.
Hmm.
As soon as you make it off of putting pressure on somebody, that one sale is going to help them keep their job, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So you gotta try to. And again, if somebody's just not doing a good job, you're going to have to. They're either have to coach them up or find somewhere else for them,
Yeah.
or ask them to move on to somewhere else. So I get that, but I'm just telling you that we're to a point now that the younger generation don't like. We should have never liked it. The old model of hit the gong. It's all about the money. And then
Yeah.
that's another thing. What was the nice lady that had that British
Emma,
accent? That
Emma
Yeah,
Maslin.
she also mentioned that economists. Why wouldn't there be more women that want to be And she said, well, all they talked about was, yeah, get it through. It's a grind, but once you get there, you make lots and lots of money. She goes, well, a lot of women might not put the priority on making piles of money.
That's it.
Maybe we want to help the world.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think overall, I think people say women make better, sales professionals. They're probably true because they care more.
Mm.
They're not going to be the grind. And I'm going to my goal is to crush my goal. No, my goal should be I crush my goal to make my customers successful.
Mm.
It's a mindset shift, but I'm telling you, it can be done. And another thing is too is I have friends that are older than me and younger than me that are bouncing around at jobs all the
Mm.
time. It is
Yeah.
sad to see, and some of them are rock stars.
Mm.
And you talk about exceptional leadership. If on average the sales position has a 3 time higher. And here's another argument. I mean, pushback on, and I know you're playing the devil's advocate, but the devil's advocate, I go, okay. And in my book, I go all the way to the end and lay out a case like an attorney of how screwed up things are broken.
Yeah.
And then I go, guess what? You're still not going to change. So I'm going to give you one last business case. So just imagine as a company, if you take, if you have some track record, you take what the total cost, and you got to really look into the total cost to find a good sales professional, bring them on, their ramp up time, all that cost. I see $100,000 out there a lot, whatever
Yeah.
that is, and then 1.5 years and subtract that. Now, what happens if your whole company, 10 sales professionals, 20, 30, if you move that to 36 months,
Mm.
how much more? And they're going to get better. Believe me, at 1.5 years, to double their time there, they're going to become a lot better at what they do. And so that's where, anyway, that's where I'm saying, and there's other shifts too. So that's where I'm just saying that, and again, the past it's just it, my look right now, looking at the track record of people saying we got to keep doing the same thing. Well, more and more buyers as the years go by don't want to talk to salespeople at all and want to buy. Well, then what,
Well,
keep
it's
doing
the
the
ones
same
that
thing
are,
and expect,
yeah, it's going to be the ones that adapt and adopt a new approach because, as we've already talked about, customers are becoming more and more educated, and often they'll actually decide who their likely supplier is going to be even before they interact with that supplier because they've done their research and they know you,
Yep.
whether it be through your reputation, LinkedIn, references, and so forth. Um, I guess it's in some respects it's like trying to turn the Queen Mary in a
Yeah.
small channel
You
because
know,
there are so many people that have
yep.
been used to doing things the same way.
Yeah. And I tell you, here's in my book, I put this too is, and that's exactly right. You can't tip the ship just like you're talking about.
Mm.
So what you got to do is you have to do a pilot. So
Mm.
if you have 10, this is what I recommend. So let's say you have 10, depends how many people you have. Take one or two and then partner them with marketing people, like an ABM approach. and partner them, or maybe even customer service, make a partnership and then do my model and do it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, you're going to have a better, you're going to have happier customers. And those people that you have doing that, they're going to brag. They'll be able to brag when they talk to them saying, oh, I don't make any, you're talking to me. No, I only make money, additional money if you succeed.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's going to be anyway. And so that's, I get that. You can't come in. Some people, I think you could, but let's say the people that are scared to
Mm.
do like a small sample of just the old school, it's all about you. You're the salesperson. You're doing 100% of your own uh, generation and stuff like that. It's that those type of companies are just failing and failing and failing. So
And the,
that's where I think you can't make a big shift, but if you do a pilot, you're gonna see a big difference because those salespeople will start talking, saying, "No, this worked good." Marketing, and if they do a partnership with customer service and marketing, and they say, "Hey, how can we, attract more customers, only the right type? How can we bring them in? How can we upserve and cross serve them?"
yeah.
It's gonna then it'll be like a wildfire of people.
Because the other part as you're talking is if we do that well, it means that customers are going to be better qualified. So they're going to be a
Yeah,
higher quality customer. You're actually going to need less potential customers coming into the top end of the funnel, and you're going to get a better experience through the customer buying cycle. And they're more likely to stay if they know that you're there, committed to their success. Versus, and I think you mentioned it. There's so many old school sales leaders, and not even sales leaders, executives that say we
yeah,
need to incentivize our sales people. We need to drive hard numbers. We need to increase the profit margins and all that sort of stuff, and we need to increase X, Y, Z. And it's as you said, it's all driven by what's going to be in it for the salesperson or the sales team. We'll send you to Cancun. We'll get you
yeah.
your number one
There you
salesperson. We'll
go.
get, we'll get a Tesla, right? And they think
Yeah.
that's going to motivate versus
If you win the club, it's weird you say that because I just thought of that. Might have been listening to your podcast. Is that someone said, I get to go to club or something like that. I'm gonna go, hey, guess what? Wouldn't it be nice if you said that you had the highest perfect fit customers and that sent you to club?
mm,
I'd be for that, right?
absolutely.
It has to be customer centric. Or I had the most growth within my existing customers. I
Yeah.
mean, if you again, right now, which is I'm wording that put a warning in my book, and I put that right now in the last 2 years, the biggest title change on LinkedIn has been revenue added or a piece of revenue added. Chief Revenue Officer, Rev Ops. Uh, they even have revenue marketers. Yeah, revenue marketers. Oh, you name it. They have all these different new title stuff. And they are so razor focused on revenue right now. You're going to turn the whole company into what buyers and customers hate:
Yeah.
commission breath, revenue breath, salespeople.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen. And Sam Jacobs, who's Pavilion, he runs a community like 10,000 startup people on there. And they all, community of startups and stuff. He
Yeah.
posted here in the last year. He said right now, revenue executives, so they have revenue in the title. He doesn't know me, right? He posted this. Now their tenure has dropped to 17 months. He goes, how can that be? I can't remember the exact title. They're gonna have 14 jobs in 20 years. He goes, that's not sustainable. And I'm like, welcome to sales. So yeah,
It's
I think being customer centric, it's the time. It's right now is the time. Younger generation wants it. Your buyers want it. Your customers want it. Who doesn't want it? Old, stuffy, out of date sales
so
executives.
let's put the let's look in the crystal ball then,
Okay.
Scott. Let's say, is there is there something coming? Is there going to be a seismic shift that is going to wake people up? Is it going to be they're going to have their customers leave in droves, or is there something that's going to happen? Is it the advent of AI, for example, that's going to have some sort of impact that forces organizations and forces executives to finally focus legitimately on the customer, not just apply lip service to the fact that they're customer focused? What's your prediction?
I don't know. I'm saying it's the time's right for someone to
Yeah,
do it. I just don't see. anybody doing it. And I think that with AI and stuff like that, I just think more and more it's going to be easier for buyers to not talk to salespeople. And the whole time companies won't change, buyers are changing more
Yeah.
and more and more. And buyers are figuring out with new tools how to buy without having to engage or to engage with them at the last minute.
Yeah.
Because why? Because the company they're working at forces them to talk to somebody. I mean, that's the only reason they're doing it. But guess what? If somebody else is making it a more pleasurable thing and maybe totally gets rid of a salesperson
Mm.
and says, hey, you don't have to be, talk to a salesperson. We can help you. There's a lot of this product led growth and all these different things and stuff like that. Um, but the bottom line is the fact that, again, it's the old school is still here. And we talk about a competitive advantage. We
Mm.
talked at the beginning, like for us, people like us, right now is the perfect competitive advantage because the and I'll shift here just real quick is because I want to get this in is
Yeah.
you talked about um um like the old school. Okay, so the old school is salespeople have to do their own lead generation because it keeps them hungry and blah blah blah. Well, here's my case against that is I would say do your buyers and customers do they want experts at closing or experts at their offerings and how they help the customers? How do they become so they're going to be right or experts at prospecting?
Mm.
So no, what you need to do is, and you mentioned your podcast, and I can just take right off that is more and more that they call it near bound now. That I'm big time into referral partners. I run a franchise which we have just a local. This is a local thing.
Yeah.
I have three groups, local owners. We get together and we help each other grow our businesses, but a lot of it's through referrals. And
Mm.
and I tell you the if I were in somebody in our group refers it to it, I mean we have like a 90% conversion rate,
Nice.
right? Because
Nice.
why? Because a trusted, here's the deal is I have a saying, the old school is I'm going to send my salespeople out knocking on LinkedIn, knocking on 100 DMs, doors, looking for a problem.
Mm.
Great great referral partners send customers with problems you can solve to you. So more than ever, we need to have, yes, I'm not saying you, especially in the near term, sales professionals are still going to have to do some outbound, but I would argue that you should, they would get better at outbound if they spent more time talking to customers that are marketing sometimes doesn't send you the best customers.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to work on that, but good referral partners, you get a good referral partner, they're they're like 90% of the way there sometimes. They're like,
Yeah.
well, who do we need to they said, hey, you really need to use these people. Oh, okay.
Mm.
Who do I call?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you skip steps. They skip steps. And that's going back to your 3%, or in the market. Now you have a whole bunch of good referral partners out there. They're listening
Mm.
for people that are in market to send them to you.
Yeah.
That's why. So you got to come at marketing needs to do their job better. Now we need to get referral partners, your existing customers, work them on getting referral programs. And then that's kind of the all bound where now you're having all these different sources coming to your sales professionals
Yeah.
rather than them just pounding on a bunch of doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what are they doing? They're spending more time talking to customers that are a better fit rather than knocking on a bunch of doors trying to find the fit. So,
And through that process, as you were talking, I'm thinking, well, if customers are coming to us and if they're doing all their research and they can actually purchase a product, and there'll be some levels of complexity where you just have to have
yeah,
some involvement of experts, but if they can essentially buy a product or buy a service or a solution without having to deal with a salesperson, then from the company point of view who's providing that service, there should be alarm bells to say we probably don't need a lot of salespeople, but what is it that we're doing as an organization that is attracting these customers, and how we now put in, as you say, the advisors who can lead the customers through their purchasing journey,
yeah,
not do all the prospecting to try and increase the level of profitability and the number of sales that are coming in for the
Yeah.
provider
That
organization. So,
that's why I see down the way, even with the AI, and then here's a quick AI hack is um ask I'm big time into referral partners. So I did this at my speaking gig I did back in August. I knew some of my customers, my referral groups were in the room. And so I asked chat, hey, I'm the owner of a successful home, residential, and commercial inspection company. What are great referral partners for me and why?
mhm,
And I asked to print off 50 and they popped off 50. And so I asked each one of them, one, two, three. Most of them knew the first three or four. But then I looked down the list and I found a couple. They went, I never thought of that before. So I told them it wouldn't be good to find two on that list and reach out to them. And it's not a sales call. It's like, hey, how
yeah,
can we partner together? Right? Let's be partners. And again, the best referral partners, if you look down the list, usually have your same customers.
mm,
They just don't compete against you.
yeah,
So they respect them. They already know them. They know you. They send them anyway. So there's a little hack with Chat GPT. The free version, just ask it who are great referral partners, and then your goal isn't not all of them are going to be good referral partners. That exercise is to look down that list and then ask them what are great cross cross marketing partners. They're pretty close. Ask Bard, it's free. The same
yeah,
thing. And your goal as a company or as a sales professional, if your company doesn't help you, you got to do a lot of your own stuff. Then go down that list and you're just looking for a couple that you didn't think about before and reach out to them. So this year, if you add two or three great referral partners, that could be the difference between reaching your goals and not.
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely love it. Hey, I love this conversation. I'm conscious of time.
Okay.
Love to ask the final question, Scott, and that is for people listening to this, sales leaders who intuitively and I guess intellectually get what we're talking about here. What is something to leave them with that could be just a slither to help them move in the right direction to try to change or start the process of change within their organization? Is there something that they can do that might be just a small step towards a bigger change?
I think if it depending on where they're at in the company, just talk about how are we going to have a culture of customer centricity? Really, that's what it is. And then talking about let's stop talking about closing customers. You close in a house or converting. So I think language is one of the first steps. And then from there, you're gonna have to change the KPIs
Yeah.
to be more the right type of customers, more giving people credit for bringing the right type of customers, bringing on expansion. So that's the first kind of steps would think of customer centricity as a culture in the company. Hey, how do we do that? Language is the first thing, and then the
Yeah.
next thing is going to be KPIs and compensation.
Love it.
And what steps you do? The first one would be easy. Start talking differently within your company, and then from there, you're going to start looking at the compensation. How can you tweak it? Maybe not tip the ship, but tweak it so that you're not so razor focused on bringing the wrong customers in at the end of the quarter.
Love it. And if the company is not going to back you, my advice would be it will take courage, but it's the right thing to do because your future self and your future team, and I guess your future customers will thank you for it. Because if it's not you, then who's going to do it? Your company probably
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah,
So
you're right. It's someone has to do it, and the thing is, I interviewed hundreds of people for my books. I love talking to them, and I tell you, there's so many of them that are on the edge of doing something, and so I
yeah,
didn't have it quite articulated. So that's where it is now: is language first within the company, and then try to get your leadership. If there's other leadership, is pushing back on you and talk. Hey, let's get
yeah,
together here because it's a team. And
yeah.
start talking about team, culture, team, and then the next step would be, which would be tougher. Let's start tweaking the compensation so that and goals so that it's more customer focused, and then
Oh,
start bragging about it on LinkedIn.
oh, absolutely. And that potentially goes viral.
Yeah. No, I tell you, I'm telling you, if you do it right, it could. You get a company. So,
Absolutely.
and
Excellent. Hey,
again, you want to be an average leader or an exceptional leader.
oh mate, like this, you want to be an exceptional leader, baby.
That's exactly
That's
right.
what
No, it
we're
is.
here.
It is. If you're customer centric, you're exceptional. If you're the old school, you're executive at best.
Absolutely. And look, there's been a theme through this conversation. And I think if you're a sales leader listening to this, you know that the average tenure of a salesperson is not long, right? So one of the key things I think we, as in you and I and others like Graham, have an opportunity to do is to have an impact on the culture of sales and sales leadership so that the tenure goes from that 17 months out to 36.
Yep.
Not only is the company that you're dealing with in terms of you're working for going to benefit from that, but your customers are going to benefit from that.
Yep.
And you individually are going to have a lot more satisfaction and fulfillment through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say if you're an exceptional leader, you get, and I'll say it, you give a shit about your team members, and for you to have a position in your company has 3 times the turnover rate of any other position, that's a, no matter what you say, oh, sales is different. No, it's not.
Yeah,
If you want someone there that's an expert, they got to be there longer than a year and a half. You
100%,
want them there for 6
100%.
years. So
Totally, totally. Hey, Scott, absolutely love this conversation. Thank you
awesome.
so much for bringing so much value
I
to
love it. I
the
appreciate
show.
it. As you tell, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about leadership and getting them to think differently, and then about ultimately, it's by it's helping sales professionals because they have families, have a stable career,
Yeah,
and then focus on the customers, folks, internal and external.
absolutely. Absolutely love it. So, for people wanting to know a little bit more about yourself, where's the best place to connect with you, and where can they most importantly get hold of your book, Broken?
Yeah, the book, Amazon. It's
Okay.
A Kindle and paperback. And then make sure to mention that you heard me on Exceptional Sales Leaders podcast, because I get a ton of DMs and stuff, and then it'll make it real easy to say, "Hey, connect, just connect with me." That'll make it easier for me to kind of wade through it. But LinkedIn's the best. And without my glasses right here, I have, like, this is my brand. I wear this shirt I have like 5 of these shirts. I
Okay.
wear 5 shirts. So that's, look on LinkedIn. I'm on this with just that's me on LinkedIn. Scott Marker.
There it is.
Yeah. And if you
In
like,
fact, I've
and
got your
I'm gonna,
I've got your
yeah, I'm
LinkedIn
going to
profile
commit
right now.
to, yeah, yeah. I'm going to commit to that. Follow me on LinkedIn too. And I mean, the book, I'm not pushing the book, right? Is the key is follow my LinkedIn. I'm giving just like that tip on chat GPT. I just gave that tip. My goal, I'm going to start committing to videotaping actionable sales tips. Like the analogy of the three, the 3x3
Yeah.
and all that type of stuff. I'm going to start trying to give more actionable stuff. I talked about the problem for years to promote the book. Now I'm going to start giving, like, okay, we know there's a problem. Scott, how can you help me out as a sales professional? If my company is crazy, I still need to make my numbers. I'm going to give some of that type of advice, and then
Nice.
also advice on companies that are trying to change.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, guys, if you
Videos. That's
listen
what
to that,
videos is. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do videos rather than writing on it. I've posted just a couple of videos, like
yeah,
like partners talked about the, how do you find new referral partners, and that stuff. And so I'm starting to do videos on that stuff because I'm finding I just get a lot more engagement. A lot of people DMing me saying, "Hey, that was awesome. I appreciate that." Versus so I'm committed
yeah,
to I'm going all in on videos in 2024.
love it. Love it. Video is it's fantastic. Short form video in particular. So,
And
so
AI, I got 2 AI tools. I just dump in a 20-minute podcast or whatever it is. It
yeah,
chops it up for me. And there's always a couple of good clips. And there's no reason no one can do it
mm,
anymore. So Opus Clip, Video, those are 2 great ones. There's probably other ones. They're like $19 a month.
yeah,
You just, yeah, and everybody should be doing it because, I mean, it's the future.
it
I
is.
mean, I tell you, if there's a long video on LinkedIn, excuse me, if there's a long article on LinkedIn and then someone has like a video, I always click on the video. I just don't want to read, like
So
a,
keep it short.
1,000 word, and anyway, yeah. So I'd rather click on it, and just listen to it. So
Love it. Love it. Hey, Scott, absolutely pleasure to have you on the podcast. I'll put the
it was an honor,
information in the
really.
show.
Well, really, I really appreciate it. I respect you a lot. I think I just you really have a lot of my core principles, which I appreciate because they're not common, but I want to
But
make them more common.
we are on a mission, my friend, to make them more
Yep.
common.
Yep.
Scott, absolute pleasure, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
All the best. You too.
Thanks.